right, something so important that has come out from that feature, it's like our farmers are feeding the plant directly as opposed to feeding the soil, which in turn should feed the plant. That is the conversation we want to get into. And to shed more light on that, we do have the distinct honor of being joined by Mr. Eric Kimungui, who is the CEO AAK Grow. Thank you so very much for making time to be with us today. And we also have Zipporah Nyambura Kuria, who is Programs Manager, Effective IPM Association.
Yes,
thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
And I'm going to start directly with you, Mr. Eric. We are still at a point where harmful pesticides, all right, poisonous pesticides are making their way into the country. And this is a big issue, so much so that even during the vetting of the newly appointed cabinet secretaries, it was one of the main questions that was asked to Dr. Karanja, who's now the CS of Agriculture. As a country that relies on agriculture, I would expect us to put a lot of measures to make sure that this area is well taken care of. Why do we still have these pesticides making their way to the country and to our farms?
Thank you very much for the question, and I think it's a very relevant question. And I think from where I sit, that's why we're here. I think to correct that disinformation or misinformation. Pesticides are designed, they're harmful, all categories of pesticides. They are only allowed to be used on certain occasions to manage the pests, diseases, and everything else. Globally, we have international code of conduct that governs the use of chemicals. It gives responsibilities to various stakeholders, governments, companies like us who are under code of conduct, and other stakeholders, including civil society. When you look at the pest control group, they are governed by that and are regulated. Regulated meaning they must be registered for use, risk assessment done, and approved for use for that particular purpose.
Right.
Meaning, if pesticides are poisonous beyond level of risk mitigation, they will not be approved by any government entity. Now, coming back to Kenya. Kenya, we have Pest Control Products Board that regulates pest control products. That they have to check this pest control is registered from country of origin. It meets the conditions for registration, and also it must meet the conditions for Kenya. In terms of human health, in terms of the environment, in terms of behavior in the soil, and in terms of food safety. How it goes into the crops when it's applied on the crop, how does it behave, how does it break down, and their overall safety. And that's why, when you look at the pest control approved in Kenya, it has the poison, the active ingredient, how to use it, meaning that you have to apply it at a specific time and wait a given period of time for you to have it. And that guarantees the food safety. Right. That's what we call maximum residue limits on food safety. So pesticides are not just sold. They are governed and everything. And we have to agree. They are poisonous. They must be used safely. And that's why they are governed and controlled by government. Even the sale, import, and distribution is controlled.
So what I'm getting from you is all pesticides are poisonous. All pesticides
are poisonous.
But we have those
the toxicity
ones.
Varies in terms of, and we have some what we call those that are lesser risk. But they are poisonous, yes, but the risk is less.
And we have those that are completely banned.
Those that are banned by international conventions are banned, they're not on the market. They're not anywhere in the market.
Even here in Kenya?
Even here in Kenya.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, I'll come back to you on that, but before we do that, Zipporah, let us talk about, we know that one of the biggest challenges that we are facing using these pesticides is the fact that once some of these horticultural crops make their way to the international market and the pesticides that are banned in those countries is detected, they are no longer sold in those countries. Where do they go?
They come back to our country.
What are we saying about our system, that if they're banned, they come back to us? Is that a problem from a government issue? Is it also the consumers? We don't ask for too much. We're okay with the bare minimum. Is it even safe for us, since it's banned there, for us to continue consuming it here? And what needs to be done moving forward?
It's not safe, because if they are banned, then why should they come back to us? We are the consumers. And when we talk about pesticides, just to say they are highly hazardous. And some research done last year shows that 76% of the pesticides used in Kenya are not safe. So when this food comes back to our country, we are the consumers, meaning there is a gap that needs to be breached. There's some information that needs to get to the consumers. We cannot accept the bare minimum, because these pesticides, they have health effects. They have health effects.
So 70%.
76%.
76%,
yes.
Eric, is that accurate?
It's not accurate. Let me come in at that level. I think she's a bit misinforming the public. When I talked about a maximum residual limits that determines the safety of food, globally, food is transmitted on safety standards. Food must meet standards for it to move from country to country. So if the food is not meeting even the Kenyan standard, I mean that's the codex trade, it must meet standard.
Yes.
And what meets standards in fresh produce is the maximum residual limits, MRLs. And what governs movement of food is codex maximum residual limits. Our country, statistics, even the report launched by Pest Control Products Board the other day, 98% conformances on codex maximum residual limits, meaning the level of confidence in our food system is very high. Now, why are we accessing the European market that we are talking about the food? Europe have got the European maximum residual limits. Kenya doesn't have a Kenyan maximum residual limit.
Should we have one?
There's no reason, because we are working with codex maximum rate that moves food globally.
Why do the European
totally
countries have that?
Country.
What is it for a viewer who's getting to hear that term for the very first time?
So what it means, therefore, that whenever you see a product, when a product is approved by Pest Control Products Board for use on edible crops, wheat, vegetables, tomatoes, and you are told on the product label, please don't harvest these after spraying, don't harvest after 7 days. Okay? If you harvest in 5 days, you are likely to exceed the permitted residues in food, permitted, legally permitted. It doesn't mean that that food is unsafe. It doesn't mean that. It only means that this farmer has violated, he has done a mistake on the application. It's an indicator. And therefore, I want to correct that, because we need to inform the public the truth and actually demystify these things of maximum residual limits. It only shows that EU goes with their EU MRAs, and sometimes we go to limit of detection if they have to take a certain decision. So even if that product is analyzed there, it doesn't come back to us. Even if it came back to us and it meets codex MRLs, that food is safe for consumption.
Still safe. So even if it is declined in the international market because of the standards that they have been set there.
What is the international market in this case?
We are talking
if food is moving to, let's say, in the US under codex MRLs, that food meets Kenyan standards, it will meet the EU. If EU takes the codex standards, Kenya will be meeting those standards. But it took their own. It's like Kenya taking under the East African community that we are going to have a Kenyan MRL for specific crops. And therefore, any food coming to Kenya, those countries exporting to Kenya must meet our standard.
All right.
So that will create a difference between the East African community and Kenya. And that's what EU has done. But it's nothing wrong in that. That's trade. And we have to meet those standards. But it doesn't mean that we are violating our food is unsafe based on those standards.
All right. I'll come back to you again, Mr. Eric. But Zipporah, you advocate highly for the use of organic farming.
Yes.
And I want you to talk to us about the benefits of going that direction. And we're talking both health benefits for the consumer and the environmental benefits as well. And also for now that we are not using, 100% organic farming, what are the repercussions for that, even if not now, in the near future?
Yes, when we talk about organic farming, we focus on the food production process that relies on zero chemical usage. So when we talk about chemical usage, one, it has its own health problems. And for the environment as well. So when we talk about the environment, we are looking into the soil health. So these toxic chemicals, they have their impact on our soils. They are killing the living organisms in our soils. They are causing soil degradation. So that means that at some point, we are not going to be able to support the plant growth.
All right.
And we have to really work so that we can have our soils back to the state where they can support food production. When we talk about the environment, we also focus on our water bodies, water pollution. We're having the aspect of water pollution. A lot of these chemicals are getting into our rivers, into our streams, and this is not safe for the aquatic life.
Right.
It is also not safe for consumption. We're also looking into the biodiversity. Excess usage of these chemicals is targeting the non-species, the beneficial insects, the beneficial pests. And for example, if I may ask you, when was the last time you saw a chameleon?
In December.
In December.
Right.
When was the last time you saw a ladybird?
Years ago.
Years ago. So when we were growing up, we used to play with those ladybirds. But because we have made our environment non-conducive, we can no longer be able to see the beneficial insects.
Right.
So we are leading to extinction. We are disrupting the ecosystem.
Mr. Eric,
I think that is a very interesting discussion. I think we stigmatize innovations through this kind of approach. If you look at the food production, if you go to look at food production per unit area 30 years ago in Kenya, and the food production currently now, and the growing population, agriculture in itself contributes to climate change.
Yes,
I mean,
greatly.
people are opening up forests. You can move to Kinala, you can see. How do you expect to see these native species, biodiversity, if agriculture is doing that? And why are people doing it? It's because of the approaches of population growth they want to produce.
Right.
So we are destroying our own biodiversity.
Yes, we are.
And we are destroying it through agriculture and through these mechanisms of talking. Restoration, agroecology, what you are talking about, organic farming. Excellent discussions, sometimes in the classroom. But when you go to a farmer, and we are talking often, I told you, go to Lamu, where a farmer has got three acres of land. And in the 3 acres of land, this farmer is producing maize, cotton, and beans. And the challenge of myriad challenges of land, and you have to innovate, you have to provide solutions for that farmer. So sometimes when we talk about this, organic farming is a good concept, agroecology is a good concept in terms of sustainability, but then even pest control products are used on integrated pest management philosophy, meaning that you have to exhaust all available methods before you use it. Work to the farm level. You'll not just see a farmer buying a pest control product and going to spray. He must have seen a pest. He must have identified a pest. He must have seen that this pest is growing to levels that we are competing with it.
And that's for a farmer who is not a farmer who's very keen and doing it the correct way. We still have an issue with farmers. Just a minute, Eric. We still have an issue with farmers who are not using the pesticides the correct way.
Absolutely.
And that is what you're pushing for, because you've made it very clear we can use pesticides, but make sure we're using as they should. And I want to get to you on the point of sensitization on the usage of these pesticides. Even according to a survey that was done by PCPB in collaboration with AAK, found out only 1 out of 6 farmers, first of all, wear protective gear when using this pesticide. Only about 15% of them store them correctly after using. So you can imagine if even the little things like protecting yourself when using something so hazardous as that is being ignored, how much are they ignoring when it comes to the usage in the farm? And does it mean we have gone wrong somewhere when it comes to sensitization on this matter?
Thank you very much. A lot has been done in terms of training farmers, but much still needs to be done.
Right.
And one of the things that needs to be done, some farmers do it maybe deliberately, some do it maybe and they don't know. And you see the fragmentation of farmers. And I can tell you the studies you are looking at is inconsistent with the Sub-Saharan Africa studies, the behavior of farmers. We are in the tropics. We have a complex pest pressure. And the wearing of PPE sometimes is access, sometimes is comfort, means temperatures, sometimes is farmers are just want to ignore the risk associated with pest control. But when you look at the initial, the label, how the label recommends about putting on personal protective equipment, is that we have to understand the farmer situation. That's why 3 weeks ago, we launched an ISO standard that takes into consideration an ISO standard for personal protective clothing that is accessible to the shops, that is comfortable to the farmers, they can use it in a nice way. That one will address that kind of issues. Secondly, in terms of sensitization, because we are training farmers, we are reaching millions. It's 12 million farmers. We are currently going to the grassroots with farmers, understanding what are the modalities that are making farmers not change behavior or adopt this kind of technology. And we have designed what we call the spray service provider. These are experts. These are experts who understand the crops, cropping systems.
And we hope this education is getting to the field extension officers as well.
As we speak now, it's happening. One of these funds go to the field.
With the field extension?
With field extension, county governments, even provincial administrations are involved to make sure that the farmers change behavior. Great.
I'll come to you, Zipporah, and my question for you is, please help us understand what are the crucial key points we need to adhere to if we are to achieve sustainable agriculture and also uphold the right to healthy food for every consumer, not just those in the international market, but even us in the developing countries as well.
Well, we need to get into those sustainable agricultural practices, such as the use of the integrated pest management techniques that relies less on the synthetics. We have to adopt the organic agriculture practices, and we have to also do a lot of training. We have to make our farmers, who are our main producers, to understand the levels on how they're supposed to use the pesticides if they have to. But we are really advocating for 100% organic.
In addition to what she's talking about, food safety goes beyond pest control.
Right.
It goes beyond maximum residue limits.
Right.
The case 1758 standard that has been developed by stakeholders that needs to be implemented. So we need to go beyond pesticides. Farmers must respect the labels. They must respect the pre-harvest intervals. They must apply the innovations in a correct way. But it goes beyond just pest control. That's about other contaminants.
Great. A lot of insights from our experts, Mr. Eric and Zipporah, who are talking to us a lot more when it comes to sustainable farming. And at this particular moment, we want to have a conversation with our farmers, because right here at Kenya's Gold, we're very keen to make sure that our farmers are growing in whichever agri-sector that you are in. And you might be asking, how can I grow as a farmer? The solution number one that we're giving you is make sure that you are part of a cooperative society. Remember, you only need to be about 10 members to form a cooperative society. And when you are in a cooperative society, you stand a higher chance of getting financial support from various financial institutions like the cooperative bank. You're also guaranteed quality farm inputs. Here we are talking about your pesticides. You are guaranteed to get the quality ones when you are in a cooperative society. You'll also get a market for your produce and also professional agronomy services as well. We've also spoken about how cooperative bank is very keen when it comes to supporting small-scale farmers, large-scale farmers, and farmers in cooperative societies. And they do this through various credit solutions which meet farmers at different points of need. So if you are a farmer who probably wants to improve machinery in the farm, you do not have to worry at all, because Cooperative Bank is able to give you a loan that we call asset financing that is meant to facilitate the purchase of this machinery. And in case you also want to buy quality farm input, Cooperative Bank is able to give you what we do call a working capital loan, a loan that is given to either an individual farmer or farmers in cooperative societies for the purpose of buying quality farm inputs from your seeds, your seedlings, your fertilizers, your pesticides, and also the general managing of a cooperative society. So dear farmers, be sure to be part of a cooperative society and take advantage of the support from financial institutions like the Cooperative Bank. We do want to take another break right now, but before we do, we always do something on the show that we call the farm joke of the day. And when the show is about to wrap up, you'll have to give me an answer. And the question that we are asking today is, where do you find a cow with no legs? I'm going to ask that one more time. Mr. Eric, you're overthinking. The rule of this game is don't overthink. I can see you. The question is, where do you find a cow with no legs? It's a farm joke. Please feel free to send in your guesses across all our social media platforms. On Instagram at Kenya's Gold. Our SMS line is 22422. And our email is kenyasgold@media.co.ke. See you after this break.